All right, folks, I'm talking to my room as well as the state here. Let's get started. We're going to try something unusual. I can't hear you, so I've not had any idea that things have been working for a while. My apologies. So let's get started, and then we'll work on getting IU10's up local audio working. Good morning. My name is Dan Berger. I'm coming to you live from IU10 this morning. Welcome to the August Data Quality Network meeting, first one of the year. Just a quick reminder, you can find everything you need at the dataqualitynetwork.net website. As you think about things that you have learned, things that you would like to learn in the future, here's a list of all the things that we went over, all the things that we're going to cover. If you ever have any topics that you are not seeing, please talk to one of your points of contact and let them know, and we'll do our best to get the topic covered. Today's agenda has all kinds of interesting things, the confirmed changes that are coming, some October 1 specific changes, a Menti quiz to help you get to know the folks in your room, and a new thing that actually this isn't that new, we've been talking about it before, but we'd like to formally roll out the fact that we're building a voluntary PIMS contact list to help each other stay in contact. Please remember to complete the feedback at the end so that we can build sessions that meet your needs. And as we go through the meeting today, you can ask questions using the tiny URL and the DQN August 18 question link. So without further ado, I will turn it over to IU15.
All right, we have PDE here with us today, so we'll hand it over to them to go ahead and get started.
All right. So first thing, we're going to jump into both versions of the manual. But before, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. The manuals are in the final stages of the approval and routing process, hoping to have them out end of this week, early next week. I know we've said that a couple times on the Q&As. Really hopeful this time. So what we're going through right now is technically still in draft, but there are some changes that we're fairly certain are going to get through. So we just want to give you a quick update on some of the minor changes within the documents before we get into the actual collection changes. So we're going to start in volume 1. We're going to look at the introduction real quick. And if you see here, we did add some verbiage regarding ESSA as well as Future Ready, links in both sections, so you'll be able to get more guidance as you're going through. And as you scroll down, you'll be able to see more information down here on Act 82 as well. Next, the definition section. We just removed this from Volume 1, put it into Volume 2, it went into Appendix N. Everything that was in this definition section related to the residency and district codes. So all of it moved over into that section in Volume 2. And courses to be reported in PIMS. First thing, just want to let everyone know, PD is encouraging all LEAs to submit all courses, course instructor assignments, and student course enrollments in all academic subject areas. So this does go beyond just core content. That is not required this year. We're encouraging it. It will be required next year. So there's some more information about those changes. Next year, there'll be more guidance to follow. Curriculum assessment instruction section. Again, this is more information on ESSA and Future Ready, the application, and how the layout of the Future Ready dashboard is going to look. So it'll give you a little bit more information on that. In the template section, we did add some information here. So the rules that were at the bottom of each individual template, anything that applied across the board, we moved up into the template section. If there are rules that are specific to a template, they will still be in that section. So I'll show you what that looks like. We did just reference back to the template domain so you can see the rules here. And last thing, before we get into the actual templates, just move the extracting data into template format. We just moved that section from the very end up to right before we get into the templates. It seemed a little out of place. And this will just give you the reference before you get into the templates of how that data gets extracted. All right. So next we're going to hop into child accounting in the student calendar template. I'm going to scroll quick in here. And here's where I just wanted to show you the rules. So these 3 rules are specific to this template, and then we just have the reference here. You'll see that in every template. Eventually we'll be able to remove that, but we just want to make sure we're pointing it out right now that there are other rules that apply, but you'll be able to see them at the top of the document. Okay. And next we're moving to the student calendar fact. And one thing I wanted to show you in here, so you can see fields 8 and 9. And when we look at those, days enrolled and days present, both of those impact an indicator for the Future Ready Index. So any data element that impacts an indicator for the Future Ready Index is called out in that data element in the template. So you'll be able to see that throughout the document. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. Everywhere that's highlighted for this year, so you'll be able to know exactly where those data elements are that impact the Future Ready Index. Next, we have the enrollment domain, and just a couple reporting requirements that changed or didn't change that are just being clarified. So just wanted to point this out, make sure that we review this section if you have to submit the school enrollment template. And next we have location fact for fire and security drills. You guys probably saw that this was coming. Fire and security drills are being reported in the SEM template now. The first security drill will need to be reported on 410, and then all the following fire and security drills will be on 731. So just keep that in mind. And one last thing in volume 1, just wanted to point out that for the student award fact template for industry recognized credentials, work-based learning experiences for non-CTE students, sorry, that's a mouthful, and for the student fact template for career standards benchmarks. Make sure you check these sections out. There are LEA types that were added, so just make sure you know whether or not you are going to need to report this information. So before I slide on to volume 2, any questions about any of that information or anything else within volume 1? And just a reminder again, we will be getting these out as soon as possible. All right. Volume 2, this is more guidance regarding the course change, so encouraging the submittal of all courses. But we also have course indicators. We added a Future Ready indicator and changed the SPP to an Act 82 indicator. So you'll be able to see this information across all of the course tables. And scrolling down, I'm just going to hit Appendix N. Again, here are where the definitions were added. So scroll through, scroll to the bottom of this section, and you'll see all the definitions regarding the residency status codes. Another new section, or another new update to make sure you take into consideration, did update the definitions for school police officer, school resource officer, and school security guard. So just make sure that you take note of the specific definitions as they changed. And one of the biggest changes to the documents this year is Appendix Z, the infraction codes. Scroll down and see we have 2 added infraction codes, which we'll go over during the changes section. But just to give you guys a heads up with what was going on for the infraction codes. So instead of having the definitions of the crimes codes, we added the infraction codes in numeric order and then applied the crimes code citations to the particular infraction codes. So you'll be able to see that as you scroll through. And anywhere where there's yellow, obviously it was something added or removed. So we added and removed crimes codes and definitions where applicable. So we're hoping this makes it a little bit easier to understand what the infraction codes are really touching on and help you guys with what needs to be reported. And for our buddy Dan in the back, just wanted to bring this up, make sure that we're aware of the funding changes for Special Ed Act 16. So again, these are not final drafts. They're still going through the routing process. And again, we'll have them posted and we'll get communication out to you guys as soon as we possibly can. So thank you.
All right, we'll take 1 minute here to switch presenters and then we'll move on to the next presentation. Go ahead and start with the next presentation.
All right, thanks, Adrian. Here from PDE, we actually have Tim Wentz, Tony Durante, Ashley McCann, JC Carroll, and in the audience we have Justin Byler, Missy Graybill. I was going to say it wrong. You already got to see Adrian, and we have Dan Berger. So, or Ficca. Yeah, sorry, Dan. I was just looking at Dan on the screen. I apologize. Oh. Yeah, I'm not sure which Dan I'm apologizing to. I'm just going to leave that go. So we're going to revisit the PIMS changes for 1819. I know you guys all got to go to the Zoom sessions that we had at the end of the school year. Some of these have tweaked. Some of them we've added to the presentation. And as mentioned earlier, unfortunately, we can't have these presentations available to download. You'll be able to review the video that will be posted on the DQN website. But in order to get you guys the most up-to-date content, obviously we wouldn't be able to get it through press approval and everything before today. So we're going to start with a welcome back to school, little kids there for us. We're going to go over updates to PIMS changes since the public review period, review the current change and DQE rule updates, review PIMS reports revisions, and then open it up to Q&A and any kind of discussions you guys have. So we figured we'd start off with a question for the audience. What of the 1819 PIMS changes got the loudest and most positive response at the PDE Data Summit? So we sat there in the Q&As and we announced a lot of these PDE changes, and we were wondering if you guys knew which one got the loudest, most positive response. Repeating last year from required to no longer collected was definitely one of them. Hey, Tony, you want to start with Safe Schools, please?
Sure. I don't have that one.
Oh, you don't have
I
that?
don't have that slide. Oh,
That's okay.
the D3 rules.
I can go over these. Page 6.
Page
I can go over the DQE rules.
Okay, yeah, why don't you do that?
Sure.
I'll jump in with
The next one.
stuff.
All right. Oh, yeah, that's when we're splitting it up. Little technical difficulties. So for Safe Schools, we have additional DQE rules. One is the incident offender parent involvement. And again, we went through the manual, and through the manual cleanup, we found that there was a lot of rules in place, but we didn't have the DQE rules in place to match them. So even though we were saying, hey, if you need 2 offenders for a fight, sometimes that rule wasn't in place in the application itself. So for parent involvement, if there's a parent involvement comment is required if the parent involvement code is a 6. In the offender infraction template, we had a weapon count is required for infractions 39 through 46, which are the weapons violations. At least 2 offenders are required when infraction code equals 17, which I believe is the fighting code. Discipline infraction comment is required for infraction code 16, 41, and 46. In the incident offender template itself, we have adjudication code is required if the request is YW, which is a yes for weapons, or a YN, which is a yes but not for weapons. The incident offender template, if an LLE was notified and the indicator is set to a yes, then we need to know who the LLE was that was contacted. If we have a weapon detected comment, or weapon detected as a yes, then we need a weapon detected comment. Arrest code YN, which is yes, non-weapon. I believe it's non-weapon. Oh, that's a mistake. It should be YW there. That's a misprint. For yes, and it's a weapon, then the weapon detection method is required. So sorry about that misprint. If disciplinary action code is equal to an R1, the incident offender assigned to alternative education indicator must be a Y. So basically these are rules that we already had in place in the manual but didn't have in the DQE and in the application itself. Some more DQE rules, safe school related. If the incident occurred on school property or grounds, the incident time frame is required. Incident victim comment is required if the medical treatment required is equal to yes. Particular infractions that must have a victim, there's a whole reference in Appendix C showing which incident and which infractions are required to have a victim aligned to them. There are too many to list. Incident offender disciplinary action template, we've got actions, the disciplinary actions of the S3 through S7. The action duration is required for each of those. In the disciplinary actions S5, 6, or 7, receive services indicator is required, and those are our expulsion sanctions. Disciplinary action S10 and R9, or I'm sorry, for S10, R9 is required for disciplinary action comment. Incident offender template, arrest code equals YN, then you need a disciplinary action comment. And if offender template assigned to alternative ed indicator is a yes, then the disciplinary action code must be an R1. So again, we're hoping that, again, we can release these for your view, or you can take screenshots or from the DQN site, review our video. All right, Tony, you want to start with school safety instead?
Sure.
Sorry.
No problem. No problem. Okay, security drill reporting. You may have heard about this. Act 39 updated the school code. Now, during the first 90 days of school, each school must conduct a security drill in place of one of the monthly fire drills. After the first 90 days, you may conduct 2 additional security drills. Section 1517 of the school code lays out the requirements for the security drills. For reporting, we're going to report this in what you're used to seeing as the fire drill template, which will be called the fire and security drill template now. Some very minor changes. Category 2 is now going to be either fire or security. We're going to have a row for each location that identifies the first day of school. So we can calculate that 90 days to make sure that you're in compliance with the school code. If category 3 is a month and a drill occurred, you're going to have to enter a date. Nothing new there. And if category 3 is a month and no drill occurred, you're going to leave that blank. Again, no change there. Okay. Because of the requirement that each LEA certifies no later than April 10th that the bus and security drills were conducted, we're going to report this in 2 phases. We're still working out some of the details about how you're going to do it, but we need to have that first security drill reported no later than April 10th. Your other security drills and your fire drills, again, you'll have till the end of July for that. What we're anticipating is that, when you're reporting in that first phase prior to April 10th, we're only going to require the row for the first day of school and the row for reporting that first security drill. Just a quick note, the DQE rule will prevent loading a future date. I think we have that in place this year. Just a reminder, date's got to be current day or less.
Thanks, Tony.
Sure.
Tim, would you mind showing them the absolutely cool new DQE rule that I'm all into?
Sure. We have a new DQE rule going into place this year on the student template and the student snapshot template, the 10-1 snapshot template this year. It's the date of birth versus grade. And what this is going to do on the student template is going to take the current date that you are uploading your student. Take that date, subtract the date of birth for the student. We're going to calculate an age. Based on that age, we're going to say, here's what grade range we think that student's going to be in. So hopefully this is going to eliminate some of the students being 20 years old and being reported in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, stuff like that. I know one thing you're thinking, what about my special ed kids? We have eliminated our special ed kids from the check, and we have also eliminated the gifted students. So anybody coded GY in the gifted field is going to be eliminated from this check as well. I know another thing that you're thinking, what if I got to put in a data exception request for this? I'm going to have to put a data exception request in every single time I upload this student. No, we are attempting to make this rule where if the data exception request is approved, as long as you upload the same district code, the same PA secure ID, the same grade level, and the same date of birth, it's going to bypass this rule. So if you have an exception to the rule, if you have a 9-year-old that's reported in first grade, very first time you upload this student, you have to put in data exception request. The next time you upload this student, as long as those 4 data points are the same, it's going to bypass that rule.
So it might be a little bit of a headache, just like the grade 9 entry date was at first, but it's definitely going to clean up our data and be nice down the road. So a little bit of a hump to get over, but we'll be good.
If we're successful on this rule bypassing, we're going to attempt to put this same type of coding on additional rules.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim.
Yep.
And Miss Ashley, can you give us some student updates, please?
Yes. So here are a few updates for the student template for this school year. Homeroom field 20 is changing from required to optional, so you can still use it, but you don't have to use it. Repeating last year, field 46 is changing from required to, I think it's still optional this year, but in the future, next year, it will not be collected. We will be using the calculation that is currently in place for STP to calculate that, so you don't have to make your flag yes if the grades were the same. We'll do that for you. Student status, field 67. Court and agency place were combined into a single code, code R. And then we added some codes, some valid values for assessment participation codes, or sorry, assessment participation codes. For the pre-code labels for the summer, spring, and winter keystones, and also for PSSA, PASA. There are codes for online testing. So we're not looking at your internal snapshot, pre-code snapshots, and wondering if you just didn't upload because your students are taking the test online. We'll just know that. And then expected graduation time frame, field 53, is being retired.
Thank you. And now to our ever helpful grad cohort, JC.
Okay, not exactly grad cohort related, but we've added a new field 90, which will be mobility code. This is being used so that we can pull students from things like the PBAS reports who have been reported by you, but have not been educated by you at all in the reporting year that we're discussing. Examples of this would be summer dropouts, summer transfers, special ed students who are educated entirely off-site for the entire year. So the three codes are A, which is for a no-show or a dropout. They were never educated by your LEA in the school year that they have to be reported. By putting in mobility code A, we know that there's not going to be a staff student subtest for that student. We're not going to be looking for them in other, attribution, that kind of thing. Summer transfer, students who completed the previous school year, they finished, they met all the requirements, whether they were promoted or not. If they completed the school year with you and then over the summer left and went to another LEA or left public education or left the state, they would be a summer transfer. They're always reported in the first year that they did not attend. That causes confusion because it looks like in this case, they finished 17-18, and then in 18-19, you have to report them as that transfer TRL code, but they were never with you, so it looks like they were there when they weren't. Mobility code B will prevent that student from being shown in the aforementioned reports. And then finally, C, never educated at this LEA during the reporting school year, but still enrolled at this LEA. Most cases, this is going to be a special ed student. There are other cases where, maybe the student's a musical genius and you've placed them in some private music school, but you're funding it, that kind of thing. In any of these cases, whether it's a special ed referrer or a non-special ed student being educated by your LEA during the reporting school year referred to an outside placement that does not report to PIMS, and that's the key, does not report to PIMS. Your LEA that would then be reporting them at quad 9 for the location, you would use mobility code C. This also applies to a special ed student not being educated by your LEA during the reporting year, educated by another PIMS reporting LEA. The most common example of that is an IU. You got a special ed student, they spend the entire year at the IU, you obviously report them at quad 9, you're going to put mobility code C in for that. In order to allow us to try to keep that data clean, we put in a DQE or a couple of DQE rules to deal with the mobility code. If the mobility code is not blank, if it's blank, there is no DQE rule that gets triggered. But if you've put in A, B, or C in the mobility code field, it's going to check first if mobility code is A, the grad status field has to be one of the dropout or enrolled and did not show codes. So dropouts, A, B, C, D, O, R, and W. Enrolled but did not show is H. If the student is a summer transfer and you use mobility code B, the grad status code must be T for transfer to PIMS or L for left PA public education. And finally, if you use mobility code C, the location on the student template must be quad 9. Those DQE rules will ensure that you're matching the correct mobility code with the correct student status. And in fact, you are putting down the student status for the student. Okay, this is just a refresher for those of you who didn't get to the Data Summit or who don't attend our Q&As, as I went on and on about the Lori Sieber, Dan Ficca, JC Carroll cage match, which really wasn't a cage match at all because we all agreed on everything and just tried to resolve any conflicts to make your life easier. We came up with a new policy. It is not a change to data, nothing, no new fields, collections, values. But officially, the grad status rule is after 10 days of unexcused absences, you have to report that student as a dropout. Dan has rules on the last day they receive services in special ed. That's when you have to exit. And Lori has rules that are, as long as you're pursuing compulsory education for the student, then you have to keep them on the rolls. So you have the possibility of 3 separate exiting dates, and most SISs, we understand, can't keep track of that. So the new policy that we've come up with, you may delay reporting the student's exit until the end of the school year, or you've completed the pursuit of your compulsory education process. That's something that your school board and administration determines, not PDE. But once that process is complete, that date then is the date you would use as the last day for the exit date. So you use that for special ed exit date. You use that for the dropout or transfer code date for grad status. And you would use that for the last day of membership. Now, caveat to that. If you then find out that the student did in fact enroll 3 days after they left you at another LEA or in Wisconsin, it doesn't matter. They've gone back to education somewhere. Then you must adjust that exit date for all 3 purposes, the last date of membership, special ed exit, and the grad status code. You'd think mine would be the one I wouldn't fumble over.
Yeah. See, we usually do this in the afternoon. I have not had enough coffee to be in front of a camera.
But you would adjust that date to no later than the day before they enrolled at that new educational entity. Now, it has to be an educational entity that would expect to culminate in a regular high school diploma. It can't be, well, they went to the Job Corps, unless the Job Corps is also providing a regular high school diploma. Okay? So one date, you can put that in your SIS, extract it for all 3 templates. All righty. I'd like to touch on what to expect with the grade 9 entry date. I'm sure, unless any of you are new, you've all had the joy of getting all your grade 9 entry dates correct last year. So what now do we expect for year 2 of the grade 9 entry date? So if you recall, grade 9 entry date is now not really LEA based, it's student based. When you put in a grade 9 entry date, we look and see what that stored grade 9 entry date is for the student. If it matches, good to go. If it doesn't match, we throw a DQE error at you. You then have to either update your grade 9 entry date to match, or send us information that says you're right and we're wrong, whatever we had taken from whatever LEA may have submitted it. In year 1, we let everybody pretty much just say, this is the right date, and we looked at PIMS data. We went and picked basically the most recently reported grade 9 entry date, so there are a lot of corrections. We were pretty lenient with that if you were the reporting LEA. Year 2, we expect now that you fixed your grade 9 entry date. So if you're telling us that it's wrong, not new, but wrong, we're anticipating that something got missed, and we want to see what that was. So when you submit your DQE rule, your exception to the DQE rule, you need to put in the description, the reason for the requested DQE, that you're sending us the transcript for the student, and that transcript has to be from the LEA that reported that grade 9 entry date. Now, if you just put in a wrong grade 9 entry date last year and you're trying to correct it, fine. You could say, it was our student, we reported the grade 9 entry date, we're correcting it. But if you're the ABC school district and the CDE school district is the one that messed up, you need to tell us and send us the transcript from the CDE school district, so we could see that, oh, in fact, they did have the student in grade 9 in the year you're saying. And then we will approve the DQE rule. The other area we'll accept for data is if PIMS already shows that the first time the student was reported, maybe the student went to the ABC school district in grade 9 in 12-13, that's what you're saying the date should be, but somewhere in the interim, somebody else changed that date and got it through. We'll look and say, oh yeah, the ABC school district had them in 12-13 in grade 9 for the first time. You don't need to send us anything else. There are reports available to help you with this. They're all under production, graduation, and dropout reporting, grade 9 entry verification. There are 4 different reports in there. Specifically, the grade 9 entry lookup is the one that you would use to check grade 9 entry date before reporting the student. And then the other verification ones would help you look to see who had the student where if you're disagreeing with the grade 9 entry date. Okay, let's see. You should be keeping the same grade 9 entry date from the previous years. Students don't change. Well, last year they were in grade 9, but then they didn't pass grade 9. So they're in grade 9 again this year. So I want the new grade 9. No, you don't get that new grade 9 entry date. Okay, the first time they were in grade 9 is the grade 9 entry date. Well, they were at ABC school district last year for grade 9, and then we evaluated them and said they should be in grade 9 this year. Doesn't matter. They were first in grade 9 somewhere else. That still counts as their grade 9 entry date. You must use that date. Let's see. For students who are just entering this year, just so everybody knows, the grade 9 entry date is 2019-06-30. Okay, we always use the last possible day of the school year for the grade 9 entry date. So don't use September 1st if that's when school starts for you, or August 27th if that's when school starts for you. You use 2019-06-30. Make sure that is what you're putting in. We've had an awful lot of schools enter. Last year they entered the current year. So like this year, making the mistake, you would do 2018-06-30 because it's 2018 now. So that, no, you've got to make sure it's the end of the school year. So please check that. If you do upload with the wrong date, it's going to take that because we have no way of really knowing that you're not adjusting from last year. However, you will then have to resubmit with the correct date for every single student and do a grade 9 entry date. And Tim and Ashley, when they process the DQE rule and see that they have 150 students to review, and we do review them. I know nobody watching me today would be the ones doing it, but we have had cases where accidentally, I'm sure, one or two got slipped in while trying to up the year one, and we make sure that that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So we do check each and every one. So please make sure so your entry, your DQE request gets processed as quickly as possible. We don't have to check them all. Make sure you verify before uploading this year. Couple of gotchas that happen. First of all, special ed students. The IEP is the determining factor for grade 9 entry date. The first time the IEP says they've attained a grade 9 level of education, that is their grade 9 entry date. It is not the physical classroom they're sitting in. We understand you, in most schools, try to keep those students in the same classroom, school, so forth with their peers, but we use the IEP to make the determination. New students who are entering the district do not get a new grade 9 entry date. I think I already mentioned that. Where this gets you is students who are coming in from a foreign country. I get the call all the time. So they're telling me they're in 11th grade, but they're 9 years old. Or I've got no records at all. What do I do? And what I tell people is take a best guess and put that down as the grade 9 entry date to get them uploaded. Have the guidance counselor do the evaluation and then decide and determine what grade you're placing them in and base the grade 9 entry date on that. If you're saying they are in grade 9 this year, first time in the United States, then this would be the grade 9 entry year. If you're saying, well, we evaluated them and they are a 10th grade level, then you would put the grade 9 entry date as last year. Take the grade -1 to get grade 9. If you determine 11th grade, this year -2. If you determine 12th grade, this year -3. We understand that the school systems are different between countries. There can't be one absolute, this is the rule, this country, this grade matchup. So we allow you to make that determination. Any other student coming from a private school or coming from a public school in another state, you must use the grade 9 entry date based on the transcripts you received showing when they first entered grade 9. One last piece of advice for IUs, CTCs, other entities, check that district of residence or home school and find out what they're telling you the grade 9 entry date would be. Find out if they have an IEP and then make your determination based on that. We know that the IEP differs frequently from the classroom. The homeschool may have put them in the classroom grade 9. You want to use the IEP. We will accept the IEP and override the district of residence if you make that request. Okay? But generally versus taking a best guess, it's better to check with the school. In most cases, the home school uploads the students before these entities, but if not, you want to ask. And I think that is it.
All right. Well, thank you.
One thing I wanted to clarify, DQE rule. It's not a change, but I did want to clarify it. If you have a foreign exchange student, when you, that student is foreign exchange student with you in 12th grade and you give them a diploma, they're still not a graduate. You mark them as an L code at the end of the school year. Make sure that foreign exchange field, whatever that is equal to yes. They are removed entirely from your cohort. You don't get credit or a ding if they don't get a diploma either way. So it has to be that they've left your school and the foreign exchange student is the yes, letting us know, just don't count them at all. That was not a change. There was some confusion on that, partly on my part. And again, thank you, Steve, for pointing that out to me.
Can't even Q&As, he gets called on the carpet.
I appreciate when somebody lets me know that there's an issue so I can get it right.
Absolutely. All right.
Somebody has to keep us honest.
Yeah, right. Keep us on our toes.
Oh, look, it's quiz time.
Yay.
Quiz/joke time. Which newly proposed DQE rule got the highest number of positive LEA votes for approval?
Because there's a voting system for these rules, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We kind of forgot about that.
A little lost here, but.
So that's the rule. Just so you know, I wanted to give Instant Pot recipes, not do jokes.
You still have the Q&A for those. So smash head on keyboard to continue. I don't know why they wouldn't approve that.
Have to?
Yes. No. Okay, I guess not. All right.
Okay. Looks like we're just getting into the odds and ends now. The delete utility. The deletes that you guys can do. We've added a program's fact deletion for those who have passed the advanced PIMS admin DQC curriculum. Special ed snapshot template, field 71. Quad 0 is no longer a valid value. Saw Dan smile.
They remembered.
Appendix Q in Volume 2 of the PIMS Manual, Student Industry Credentials. Look there for updates. We've added some values and removed some. In the manual, Volume 1, Course Template Indicators. We've retired Fields 11, the Honors Indicator, Field 34, the CTC Indicator, and Field 35, the Gifted Course Indicator. Some DQE rules. We've put some rules in place to ensure that school enrollment, district entry, school entry, and state entry date don't disagree. None of these have to match, but they can't be, you can't tell us something that doesn't make sense. We can't have a district entry date that's earlier than the state entry date, for example. Edna grade configurations. When you report the student's location of residence, we're going to check to make sure that that location actually offers the grade level that you're telling us the student is in. Otherwise, it's not going to be a valid location for you to report. Security drills. We're going to be looking for a security drill reported in the first 90 calendar days of your school year. And we have a DQE rule in place to prevent you from enrolling, withdrawing, and re-enrolling a student all on the same day. And we've removed some DQE rules for fields being set to optional or retired.
Okay, most of these haven't changed since the first time we presented them to you, but we wanted to review them since it's such a new thing and it's a pilot. And again, we have Dan Ficca, and now Jody also in the audience, if you have questions at the end regarding some of this. And I believe we do have some notes from Carol also from the discipline side of the house, Safe Schools. So in 1819 is going to be our year that we're piloting the discipline and special ed, the collection of Table 9A and Table 13 from the PIMS discipline templates. We're going to compare new PIMS Cognos reports. So we're going to try and pull Table 9A and Table 13 data this year onto Cognos reports and compare them to the ones that you're already submitting to your Penn data managers so that we can see if there's any issues with the way we're pulling or reporting for this year. As Adrian was nice enough to mention earlier and spent a lot of time working on, there's a reorganization, God bless you, of Appendix Z, PIMS Manual 2. A lot of the infraction codes were moved around, the clarifications were added. I know Safe Schools has, let's say, more clearly defined bullying, cyberbullying, harassment, and cyber harassment in the manual. They had updated the code definitions that we had talked about earlier, which the difference between a knife and a cutting instrument. A knife must be a blade length of 2.5 inches or longer. Otherwise, if it's anything less than 2.5 inches, it will be, you should mark it as a cutting instrument. Changes to the infraction codes. These adjusted a little bit. If you remember when we did this presentation at the end of the school year, we were hoping that these were going to be all new infraction codes added to the 51 some that we have. But we've actually, after talking to PDE, press, policy, and legal, they've moved some of these around. So cyberbullying will now be included under number 27 infraction code, which is the bullying. It will not be its own separate infraction code. Vaping will still be included under tobacco. We had talked about multiple times that vaping would be its own code next year. Fortunately or not, they've decided now to just combine them, so vaping will still stay under number 50 tobacco. Drug delivery resulting in death will not be its own. It will be included in 26 murder manslaughter. And as mentioned by Adrian earlier, we do still have the 2 new infraction codes now of A, academic code of conduct violation, and C, student code of conduct violation. In the incident offender template, we've added new adjudication code values for withdrawal, dismissal of charges, and being found not guilty. The grade level will now be required. The primary disability code field is conditionally required if the student is a special ed student. And the sending district or charter school will be required for all special ed students. A common question I've gotten on this is, well, what if if they're not sending them to me? What if it's my student and it's a special ed student? You'd want to put your own AUN in that field as the sending district or charter school. We have new values for the the injury severity code. There's victim did not sustain physical injury. Victim did sustain physical injury, but it wasn't considered serious bodily harm. Victim did sustain serious bodily injury or resulted in death of victim. And injury severity is now a required field. Another common question we'll be getting over the summer regarding what incidents do we have to submit. All non-safe school incidents that are resulting in sanction codes S3 through S9, so that's your expulsions, that's your suspensions, must be submitted regardless of if they're special ed or regular ed. So we're talking, we're not saying we're required for all the detentions and anything like that. Now, if it's a safe school incident and it resulted in detention, because it's safe schools, you would have to submit it. But regardless of if the student is special ed or regular ed or any other program, if it ends up in resulting in an S3 or through an S9, which are your suspensions and expulsions, they must now be submitted this year. For special ed offenders, and again, this is not a rule that has changed, incidents must be submitted by the LEA imposing the discipline. So if they're at an IU program, the IU would be submitting that discipline. If it occurs at a non-PIMS reporting entity, the district of residence or the enrolled charter school must submit that discipline data. some ACS updates. We're going to have a single folder on the root of the production folder called ACS All. All the ACSs will still be located in the folders where they remained last year, but we're going to have a list of hyperlinks to them all in one location. Because I know I commonly have to go to Ashley and say, where's that student ACS, or where's the Safe Schools ACS? Which folder is it in? So we're hoping it's going to be a nice little folder, one-stop shopping for you. Verification reports, acknowledgement sign-off, we've been updating them on a lot of our reports. We're adding the naming scheme and the path to all the ACSs in the PIMS calendar, the elementary secondary data collections calendar. So I'm super excited about that. I'm sure Adrian will mention that later on with his calendar updates. For PBAS, we're adding a location and grade to the reports, and we're going to remove the quad zero records from the school district level so that those aren't on there, that you don't have to actually look at and verify. And we're going to be, as JC mentioned, using those new mobility codes to try and pull some of the students off there that you don't need to verify and don't need to be part of PBAS. As far as PIMS report updates, as mentioned earlier, we're going to have a new Table 9A and 13 special ed reports. Again, they're not going to be the official reports this year. They're going to be used as comparisons to the official ones that you submit to your Penn data managers. But hopefully in future years to come, those will be your official reports. Because of all the Safe School infraction and different changes that are made in the manual, we're going to do some updates to the Safe School reports. And again, we have that new subgroup comparison report. We're really hoping you guys utilize this a lot. It's so important with Future Ready PA Index, with ESSA, with accountability, with grad cohort, with attribution, to make sure these subgroups for these students are up to date. This report, there's actually multiple reports, but one can be run as a pre-snapshot. You can run it by location. You can run it by the subgroups. It's going to show you the change in count, so the number of students in 7th grade that were special ed last year compared on that date compared to the number of students in 7th grade that are special ed this year. And not only will it show you the count change, but it's going to show you the percentage change. So very helpful report to kind of double check your data. That's the end of our presentation. We're hopefully starting off this new school year with some changes that you'll prefer. And we'd like to open up to Q&A.
All right, we'll take a couple minutes here and then we'll jump into the Q&A session.
This is your chance to get some more questions put in. We'll get started with the questions in just a second.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start the Q&A session here. So it looks like we'll send off the first question to IU8. All right, we'll actually jump to IU23 and come back to IU8 here.
Hey, can you hear me? We're not sure if this microphone is working, so can anyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Not in here. So a question about Field 90 Mobility Code C. Are you saying, just as a point of clarification, that it's not exclusive to special ed students, i.e. if you had a regular ed student who was outplaced for whatever reason?
Yes, that's correct. Mobility Code C is any student who you're reporting for the entire year at location Quad 9. Doesn't matter the reason you're educating them elsewhere, but if you're reporting them, usually because you're still funding the education, it's most of the cases, you would use Mobility Code C. Originally, when it was first presented, it was only special ed, but a few LEAs came to us with examples of where it was not special ed, and we agreed with them and have expanded it to be usable even if the special ed field does not equal Y.
All right. Looks like that answers IU23's question. Let's see if IU8 is available now. All right, let's go ahead and jump then to IU14 for the next question.
We had the question posed for one of our larger districts. They have a lot of students that move in from out of country, mainly Puerto Rico. Transcripts don't often match the grade and birthday. They get told they're in a certain grade and it doesn't align. So how would they handle those? Like, I guess the concern is if they had 1,000 kids come and enroll because of the hurricane in Puerto Rico, I mean, even 100 kids is a lot to have to get a request to override.
Okay, so the birthday rule, we have a range on it. It's not exactly grade 9 is age 12. It's age 11 to, or 10 to, whatever.
Your bumper up and
I'll
one
go
down.
15 to 17.
Yeah. So, and actually, as you move up through the grades, the range gets wider because we understand that more students will need an extra year of education or be repeating a year. So that grade to birth date has a range. So I don't think you're going to find it mismatched far enough that all 1,000 students will be triggering the DQE rule. But I would anticipate it would be a higher percentage compared to your regular population.
All right, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, let's go then to IU2 for the next question.
We have a question regarding mobility code. What knowledge are you gaining with mobility code if the graduation status code has already been provided?
So if a student is marked as a T-code transfer in the 18-19 school year, does that mean that that student left halfway through the year over Christmas break, let's say? Or does that mean that that student completed the 17-18 school year and then enrolled somewhere else? We have no way of knowing that just from the student template. Because of the millions, literally millions of records that are entered for a student in enrollment to try to match up the date, and because there is no consistent start date in the state of Pennsylvania, it's impossible for us to use enrollment to make that determination. Yet it is a request from a lot of the LEAs to have us not include students in certain reports and processes that are not required for students who never were actually educated in that year, even though you reported them. So we have the T code or L code and the mobility code B that lets us know, yes, you had to transfer them in the school year, but they were never actually educated by you, so there will be no staff student subtest record. They dropped out over the summer. They finished one school year and never came back the next school year. We could tell that that dropout occurred over the summer based on the mobility code A and one of the matching 7 dropout codes. So that's the purpose.
All right, great. Let's see if we can go back to IU8. I believe we're having some audio issues there with not being able to hear Barry. So let's give that another shot. All right, so it looks like we're still having a little bit of issues hearing Barry here. For right now, let's go ahead. We'll jump to Jane and IU3 and come back to Barry.
All right, we have Marianne here at IU3 that's going to ask her question.
Concerning security drills on the fire drill template, will cyber charter schools with no students at the building report those the same way that we currently report the fire drills? Or will we be required to perform security drills and report them even though we only have teachers and administrators at the building?
Your requirements are going to be the same as they are for fire drills.
Thank you.
All right, great. Let me go ahead and just read IU8's question here. So it's please provide again the reference for conducting a security drill.
Okay, that reference is section 1517 of the school code. On our website, and my screen just locked. On our website at the upper right, if you click on the policy link, scroll down to codes and regulations, that'll take you to a page where, again, you'll find another link to the school code. Control F, 1517, about the probably the third time you hit the enter key, you'll land in section 1517, and that describes the requirement for conducting the security drills and describes the requirements you have to meet in order to call something a security drill.
All right, great. Let's go ahead and jump to IU16 for the next question.
Hi. I think JC sort of answered this question already, but regarding the DQE changes for the birth date and the grade level, what about a student who is held back by parents or retained otherwise?
Yeah, I think I did because I'm long-winded. Because we have the range on the grade to birth date, not a specific this school year, this age, and we increase that range as the grade progresses. So high schoolers have a larger range than an elementary school. We think we're reducing the number of occurrence where that example will occur.
Plus two, once we start getting files in, we're going to be able to determine if we need to make an adjustment in our ranges. And we can do that by just doing a quick table update.
Yep.
And then the next time you upload, you won't hit that DQE rule probably.
You can also decrease those ranges.
And also decrease those ranges. Sure.
Thank you.
All right, great. Let's go to IU 20 for the last two questions.
Hi, yes, we have our first question is in regards to the APC code. What is the difference between using N for keystones, I for PSSA, and then the new O online tester code?
Are we? So you still won't get pre-code labels for those students, but we will know, us in assessment, if those students are planning on taking those specific tests. So it's less likely that you'll get an email from us saying that you didn't upload any of your students as taking the Keystones or the PSSA PASA. Because if you just use no for online testers, then it just looks like there's a big subgroup that's missing that you're not going to be testing.
We get a lot of requests for reports from on the state level for that kind of information.
Okay, thank you. And then I believe we have the last question too. Can you go over the CSPR changes one more time? Please.
All of the CSPR changes are due to federal reporting changes. So I can kind of slowly browse here for you through the PIMS manual. We're making it, and again, like I mentioned, if you go to like Appendix AE, once it's out, they'll have these in detail. But we're no longer collecting the amount and percentage. Multiple categories are now being removed and replaced in some cases. So you'll see here that these categories also, so there's two sets that look like they're moving, the TAS and SWP staff, and you'll have to bear with me, I'm not as familiar with the federal changes for this. And the TAS service categories are the ones being removed. Is there any other questions on those? I can try and help.
I think we're okay for now. Thank you.
All right, great. It looks like that's the end of the first Q&A session. So we will go ahead and take a 10-minute break this time. I apologize if there was any confusion on that break, but we'll take a 10-minute break and we'll come back here right before 10:30 to begin the next part of PD's presentations.
Barry, can you do a quick test and see if we can hear you? Danielle, can you try talking from IU25?
Okay, welcome back from the break. We're going to go ahead and get started with the second presentation now.
All right. Hi, I'm Ashley McCann, and I do, October student and everything. So we are, this presentation is more like reminders, like the most common DQE issues that we run into, common issues, common errors, and then just a quick overview. So for October student templates, the student template is a cumulative list of all students in your LEA on a year-to-date basis. This is a required template for all student-related templates. It's a foundation for graduates, dropouts, and cohort, and also for all internal snapshots. And then the October student snapshot template is a subset of the student template. This is students who are educated by your LEA on October 1st, or educated by a teacher at your LEA on October 1st. The focus here is on enrollments, low income, CEP, and English learners. Another template is the school enrollment template. This template tracks student mobility. It's used by PDE in conjunction with the student template to generate all internal student snapshots. There's a historical audit table, so everything that goes into the student template, even if it's deleted, there is a historical aspect to it, so we can see all of that. All of the enrollment codes are in PIMS Volume 2, Appendix E. And then the last template for the student collection is the Programs Fact template. That tracks program participation, and the reportable programs are in PIMS Manual Volume 2, Appendix F. You might remember that list drastically decreased last year. So the timeline for reporting C1 this year October 1 is on a weekday, so it will be October 1st. The collection window is October 1st through October 11th. And then we close the collection down and we do all of our internal review between the 16th and November 1st. No data can be submitted during that window. You'll probably get emails from us. And then there's the correction window from November 2nd through November 16th at noon. And then we ask that you try to upload in those windows. And then the ACS due date is November 16th. So the collection will close at noon on the 16th, and we ask that you run your ACS and submit it after the noon refresh on the 16th. So one of the issues that we run into are fields 88, 33, and 131. So I will go over those. Field 88 is the Economic Disadvantage Status Code. So this indicates the economically disadvantaged status of each student. It's the official low income count for teacher loan forgiveness program. And then do not use economic status field 33, food program participant, to determine low income. They are not one and the same. Data sources that are available to determine economically disadvantaged students. There's TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families Cases, Census Poor, Medicaid, children living in institutions for the neglected or delinquent, and children living in foster homes. If such data are not available, non-CEP schools can use the most recent reliable data available at the time of determination, such as free or reduced price lunch eligibility, field 131. Remember, 131 and 33, not the same field. So community eligibility provision schools, CEP schools. So if a specific percentage of all of your students at a specific school are considered low income, you can get the CEP status, so all of your students should be reported as food program eligible. That's field 131. So if you are a CEP school, every student should be reported as F or R in field 131. Do not use free or reduced price lunch eligibility to determine them. And then a reminder, not all students in a CEP school are considered economically disadvantaged, field 88. This is a common error. So field 131, again, food program eligibility. CEP schools are to report all students as food program eligible regardless of their economic status. Non-CEP schools are to report students as eligible only if they are eligible to participate in the free or reduced price lunch program. I made this little chart. Are you a CEP school? The only difference is how you mark field 131. If you are a CEP school, everyone is considered food program eligible. For field 33, not everybody has to be considered a participant. It is more likely that everybody is a participant, but it is not required. And then field 88 for economically disadvantaged status, each individual student should be determined on their own. Not everybody is considered economically disadvantaged, low income, if you are in a CEP school. Yes, it is possible for 100%, but it is not likely. Reporting AEDY programs, Alternative Education for Disruptive Youth. A reminder, this is a program, so it's an extension of your LEA. You will report each student in an AEDY program at the location code that the student would attend if they were not in an AEDY program. AEDY programs are supposed to be short-term, so students shouldn't be in them for the whole year. We came across this issue with assessment data. And then when you report these students in the program, you will report these students in the program spec template in the appropriate AEDY program code. I guess I should. So key fields. There's a code column for the PIMS templates. Code K is a key field indicator. Data in PIMS cannot be overwritten if the code is K. Only PDE staff can delete key fields. To have your data deleted, you'll have to first call the application support desk. I want to say help desk. Get a ticket number, an incident number, and then you'll send your delete data maintenance form to us, to our team inbox, and then we process them for you. Remember that a data maintenance form is required. We cannot delete something for you just because you email us and ask us to. And correct data must be submitted after we delete it, or there will be duplicates if you try to submit data in key fields. Common errors that we run into with school enrollment template. Common error, 2 records submitted with the same enrollment code back to back. So remember, you have to do an enrollment code followed by a withdrawal code, followed by an enrollment code. Withdrawal could be, the 0506 and then the re-enrollments, but they have to be in the right order. Because if you have, I don't know, if you're trying to change the date, you have to just remember that you have to use the delete process, which I will go over in the next slide. Delete process. So in order to delete records from the school enrollment template, we do not do that here or at PDE. You can do that on your end. All you have to do is submit what's incorrect in the school enrollment template. Everything is exactly the same, except in field 8, you'll just put delete in all caps. It's the comment field. And you can put the corrected record right below it. As long as the delete record is first, it'll take what was in there that was incorrect out and replace it with the corrected date. Excuse me. Because again, if you try to correct it by overwriting it, you'll get an error. We run into issues when an LEA refers a student out. If a student becomes a special ed referral in the middle of the year. So you'll submit the appropriate withdrawal code, which is WD02. And then you'll upload the student with special ed referral Y, but don't submit another school enrollment record. A reminder of the new withdrawal re-enrollment codes, WD11 and 12, that were introduced last year. If you have a student who changes a grade level or school location within the LEA during the school year, you'll submit the appropriate withdrawal code. Within the same location code, it's 11, WD11, and then R11.
Yep.
And then if they are staying in the same LEA but changing location codes, so if they get promoted, I don't know, in the middle of the year from 5th grade to 6th grade, you'll do a WD12, R12, put them in elementary to middle school. Yep.
Hey, can I just interject there? Don't use that if you made a mistake and enrolled them in the wrong school. Now you realize your mistake and you want to correct it to the other school. That you would use the delete that Ashley told you about. Delete the incorrect record and upload the correct record. Only use the 11 and 12 codes if that information actually changed. Don't use it to fix a mistake.
Next, I'll talk about reports. There are a lot of reports that you can run to check your data. There are PIMS validation reports. These are reports that you do not have to wait for a refresh to run. As soon as you submit data to PIMS and it's approved, you get all your green check marks, says that you're great. You can run the validation reports. Those are located in public folders, eScholar Framework for Cognos Verify validation reports. So these specific reports are in template verification. The student template details report will give you whatever you have in PIMS for the student template. And then there's the student snapshot template details report that will give you whoever you have uploaded into your October 1st student snapshot. And then the school enrollment template details report will tell you everything that you have uploaded in the school enrollment template for the specified school year that you select. Next is production reports. So these you do have to wait for a refresh. So you'll upload to PIMS, everything gets accepted, and then noon hits, and then we do a refresh. So I don't know, like 1:30 p.m., 2 o'clock, you can go back in and you can run these reports. So they are located in public folders, eScholar Framework for Cognos Production Enrollment Reports. Excuse me. So some of these reports are homeschool students, LEA October student verification district and school level, open schools with no enrollment reported, and then the enrollment snapshot subgroup comparison. That is the report that Candace touched on earlier. So when we send out our error checks, we typically look at something like this. It's over the year change. So we look at who was reported last year, what your data looks like this year, do the percentages, and anything that gets flagged, we send you. You can actually do that on your own. And this year, well, it's new for this year, but we are actually adding a filter for grade level. So in the future, when you're looking at your assessment data, you can filter for grades 3 to 8 through PSSA, et cetera. Excuse me. More production reports. So schools with staff but no students, schools with students but no staff, schools with 0 females or 0 males, because sometimes your SIS messes up and all of your students are reported as one gender when they are not. Students at quad 0 and quad 9 locations, location of residence verification report, and resident district students reported by other LEAs. Also in production reports, your ACS, obviously. So remember, you'll have to run that on November 16th and submit it to us. But one very important report that we are asking you to run, please, please, please run, duplicate students reported details with other LEA. So if multiple LEAs report the same student in their snapshot, like 2 school districts, and that's not supposed to happen, this is a good way for you to see exactly who is reporting the student, where they are being reported, and then you can get in contact with the other LEA and hash it out and figure out who should be reporting, because we don't know. Have a cage match. We had a huge duplicate students issue this past year that we worked through. Yes. So we're hoping that highlighting this report will encourage LEAs to run these on their own. And then remember, not everybody will submit their October student data in the first 2 weeks. So you'll just continue to run it. I don't know, schedule a meeting to remind yourself to run it for the October student snapshot, I don't know, weekly. So then you can see, oh my gosh, this other LEA just uploaded their October student data, and now it looks like we're both reporting the same student. Yes, just do that. So contact information for us, technical assistance, PIMS support services, the phone number I'm sure you all know, and then their email address. And then you can contact us with any questions, all questions. Our email is ra-ddq data collection, singular, no S, at pa.gov. And these are the faces behind the emails. EL assistance, you can email ra-liep at pa.gov. And that's all I have for mine.
All right, we'll take 1 minute here and we will switch into the next presentation. We'll go ahead and start with the next presentation.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Wentz. I will be doing the staff collection this year. That's both professional personnel and the support personnel. This presentation is going to probably be one of the fastest staff presentations you've seen. I'm not as long-winded as Ashley, so here we go. Just a reminder here, the collection how-to guides, they are available out on the PD website. There is one out there for the October staff data set, and there's also one out there for the support personnel. So if you have any questions that you need answered really quick, you can go to one of these 2 guides and probably find the answer rather quickly instead of waiting for an email reply back from us. All right, some reminders here. Who must report to the staff collection? The professional personnel. So school districts, intermediate units, career and technical centers, charter schools, and state juvenile correction institutions. Who are you reporting? Well, you're going to report your professional personnel. Anybody that's currently employed. Anybody that's on long-term leave. Subcontracted from non-PIMS reporting entities, and anybody that was terminated between 10/3/2017, which is 1 day after last year's snapshot, to the current year's snapshot date. So is that person being terminated on 10/1? That's when you report that person as terminated. Who is not reported? Well, positions that are filled by temporary staff, day-to-day temp workers. So your substitutes, your long-term substitutes that are not filling a vacancy, you will not report them. Security staff, any of the support personnel positions that you will report in the supper data set will not be reported in this collection. All right, so for the staff and the staff snapshot, there are some fields in here that have no bearing on the professional personnel for the October 1 collection, but we still have to collect it. It's kind of like in the student template for the October 1. Obviously, you're not going to report graduates for the October 1, but that field is available, or even dropouts. So in the staff and the staff snapshot, you're going to report for the job description field, which is field number 8. And this is your access level for PBAS. And in conjunction with that, you're going to provide an email address for that staff member. We recommend, highly recommend, that you use the work email address for this staff member. And once again, these two fields have absolutely nothing to do with the October 1st collection, but they are collected for other data sets. Field 39, the years of experience. This is the total number of years that the individual has worked in one or more education institutions. So if your professional staff member, this is their first year in education, you will mark them in this field as a 1. Never use a 0 in this field. Employment in states other than PA and private schools can be counted. So if you have a professional staff member coming in from Maryland, they taught school in Maryland for 5 years, this is their first year in Pennsylvania, you would have 6 years experience in this field for that. Years experience in the district, field 43. Now this is going to be the total number of consecutive years that the staff member has worked at your particular LEA. So if your staff member worked there for 25 years, this year is the 26th year, you put in 26 for that staff member. If that staff member worked at your LEA for 25 years, they left and say they were at a school district, they left and they went to a charter school for 5 years. They decided to come back to the school district. You will mark them in years experience in district as 1. So it starts over again at 1. And once again, never, ever, ever put a 0 in this field. Annual salary, field number 52. This is the salary or wage an individual is paid before their deductions. Report this in whole dollars only. Do not report cents. So we don't want to know that they made $35,782.52. Just give us the whole dollars. Do not report any extra salaries for if your math teacher happens to be the football coach. Do not report that in their salary. Only for the assignments that they are assigned. Currently in contract negotiations, enter the most current salary for that staff member. Once again, substitutes are not included in this collection, so please do not report any substitutes. For the staff assignment reminders, field number 6, the assignment date. So you will enter the actual date the employee began the reported assignment code, field number 3. So if your professional staff member is the principal, you want to put in this field here, the assignment date field, the date that that person became the principal. So if that person became the principal September 1st, 1997, that's what you put in this field. Completion date field, field number 7. This is a conditionally required field for anybody that is a Pennsylvania-inspired leadership position. Now, I know some of you are probably wondering, what is a Pennsylvania inspired leadership position? Well, that can all be found in the how-to guides. And I have put a little bit of information here for you for that as well. So it's anybody like a principal, superintendent, like that. So there are staff assignments. Once they have ended that assignment, so maybe your principal no longer is the principal, Maybe they went to be the science teacher or something. So that's when you would put in a completion date for that particular staff member. This next slide here is what you're going to find in the how-to guide about the PIL program. And I also put on here the assignment codes for that. So anybody that's elementary principal, assistant or vice elementary principal, secondary principal, assistant or vice secondary principal, K-12 or middle school, assistant or vice middle school principal, superintendent, assistant superintendent, intermediate unit executive director, intermediate unit assistant executive director, and director of vocational education. Any of those assignment codes are assigned to any of your staff members. If they were to end that assignment, then that's when you would use the completion date. And all those assignment codes can be found in the PIMS Manual Appendix B, or Volume 2, Appendix B. Getting ahead of myself. Percent time assigned. So this is the total amount of time that is assigned to each assignment that the professional staff member will have. This field here, if you're a full-time staff member, we anticipate to see 100% time assigned. Now, if you only have one assignment, you're a full-time staff member, that one's pretty simple. If you're a full-time staff member and you have multiple assignments, then you want to break it down and assign each assignment with the appropriate percent of time. So if you have 2 assignments, you split them equally. It'd be 50-50 on here. DQE rules will check this for the full-time staff members. If it's less than 100%, you'll receive an error. If it's greater than 100%, you will receive an error for the full-time staff members. Same with the part-time staff members. If anything is reported greater than 100%, then the part-time staff members will be hit that DQE error. Primary assignment indicator, field number 26. So once again, if you only have one staff assignment, this one's pretty easy. You assign that one as your primary assignment indicator as a Y, and then you just move on from there. Where it becomes difficult is where the staff member has multiple assignments. Where the staff member has multiple assignments, you need to determine which assignment is the primary indicator for that particular staff member. This helps us in our reporting. Whenever we publish the reports on the website, it gives us our classroom teachers, our principals, superintendents, gives us all those assignments. New DQE rule for this year. Years experience. I talked about this a little bit earlier. Field number 43. So this rule is going to validate if last year you reported this staff member as 1 year of experience in field 43. This year we expect to see a 2 in there, so on and so forth. So if they had 25 years last year, this year we're expecting to see 26. If that doesn't happen, obviously you get the error. Once again, if you need a data exception request for that, you can provide a data exception request. We'll review it. If we approve it, hopefully this is another one of those DQE rules where the next time you upload this staff member and everything's the same, the district code's the same, the PPID is the same, and field 43 is the same. Hopefully it just passes through. We still need to do some more testing on that, but all the testing I've done so far has done well with this rule. All right, so that was all the professional personnel. Now we're talking about the support personnel. Here's some reminders for that. Who must report? Once again, school districts, intermediate units, career and technical centers, charter schools, state juvenile correctional institutions. Who is reported? Well, all your support personnel, everybody that's currently employed, anybody that's on long-term leave, Anybody that's subcontracted from a non-PIMS reporting entity who is not reported in here. Well, you don't want to report any of your professional personnel that you reported in the October 1 snapshot. Positions filled by temporary staff, day-to-day work temp workers, don't report them. Support personnel terminated prior to October snapshot, do not report them. Support personnel terminated after the October snapshot, do not report them. So anybody, if you think of it this way, if you were taking a picture on October 1st, who would be in that picture? Some minor updates to the staff ACS. The support personnel page, which was the very last page of the ACS, we're adding a total line. So it's going to give you a total of all your support personnel. We're going to add an over-the-year change column. So we're going to compare previous year's snapshot to the current year's snapshot. Was there a change in the counts? And we're adding a line to be initialed to indicate that the support staff counts have been reviewed. Believe it or not, we received some ACSs last year that no support personnel was submitted. And in the previous year, there was 150 to 200 support personnel submitted. So obviously that was a mistake. I have a feeling they might have been in a hurry to get the ACS in and just forgot to upload support personnel. So this is just a check to make sure that you're checking these things. The data warnings chart. This is on page 1 of the ACS. This is going to move to page 2. Page 1 is going to have all the instructions for the ACS. And in those instructions, please, please, please use the email account that is on page 1 to submit your ACS. So this data warnings chart is going to go to page 2. There's some checks on here for the professional personnel to ensure that the data that you're submitting is accurate. Obviously, we know that there's going to be some staff members with assignment counts that are going to be greater than 100%. So that's going to show up on this chart. There's a couple other checks on there, but one check that we're adding for this year is to see the count of the chief school administrator reported for this school year. So on this chart, if this count is a 0 or more than 1, this is an error. There should be only 1 chief school administrator reported for each LEA. So if you would see that on this ACS, do not sign it. Take that thing straight to the shredder, shred it, figure out who you reported as the superintendent or the chief school administrator, and or didn't report, and make sure that that's updated before you submit the ACS. And that's it. All the dates for the collection and the ACS due date, the same as Ashley told you. There's all kinds of reports for you to run as well for the staff collection.
All right, great. We have one more quick presentation, so we'll take a minute to switch presenters and then we'll jump into that presentation. Okay, we'll start with the last presentation here. So we have a short presentation from Adrian, and then we will go ahead and jump into the Q&A session after Adrian's done.
Okay, so we're just going to do a couple quick updates for the calendar. So I'm just going to scroll over, and you can see collection opens and closes. We separated those last year. Obviously, they're staying. Just wanted to make sure that they're individual dates so you can sort. And then at the very end, you'll see the last updated. So that will be updated every time we make a change to the calendar and put a new version out. So you'll be able to see that information in there. Executive summary, pretty straightforward. Nothing's changed on there. And then we have the ACS summary. And this changed a little bit. So if you're familiar with this tab, we added the Cognos path and report name. And you'll be able to see that. And then we have the required ACS file naming convention. And a couple of them don't have a required naming convention at the moment. We're working with the individual departments to see if we can get a required or just put out there a let's use this naming convention. So we're working on that at the moment. We'll probably have those updated by the time it's posted. If not, continue to use what you're using for the non-Office of Data Quality ACSs. And when we get those updated, they'll be added in here and you'll see that. So we have the data refresh schedule again. And then the last tab we added this year, this is only the PIMS dates. So if I go back to the calendar, you can scroll down. And if you guys use this often, you'll know we have the non-PIMS collection information in here as well. So what I did on this last tab is got rid of the non-PIMS information and got rid of any other rows that break up the calendar. So you'll be able to organize and format the calendar exactly how you want it based on just the PIMS information. So if you want to sort, come over here to the close date, sort by the close date, you'll have all that information, and you won't have to base it off of the original calendar or make any adjustments to that. So every time we put an update out there, this portion of the calendar, this tab will be updated as well, and then you'll be able to resort it again. I know it's not the best approach, but it's the best we can do for now. So you will have that available. Lastly, there's going to be a tab. It won't be out with the first version, but when we have a second version come out, we're going to have a change log. So anything that's changed will be added into that change log. So you'll be able to see it. So not only will you see it on the calendar where it shows last updated over here on the far right, we're also going to have a change log, so you'll have a little bit more information as to what actually changed. So you don't have to, look at last updated and try and decipher what the change was. We're going to put that information into a change log as well. So that is all I have. Any questions on the calendar, or I guess we're jumping into the Q&A, sorry.
Yep, so we will go ahead and take about a minute or so to allow people to submit questions, and then we will go directly into the Q&A session. Okay, we'll go ahead and start the Q&A session. So we'll go to IU 10 for the first question.
Hello, our question is regarding the Edna grade configurations and the DQE matching back to Edna for the grade span. Is there any exception for students who maybe are in a life skills classroom, but their grade level is outside the grade span for the building where their classroom is located?
A location code residence or just
It's
something
just
different?
regular location.
The regular location code, field 2, I think.
It's location of residence only.
Yeah.
The error is location code of residence.
Okay.
Is that your question?
Yes.
No.
So field 2, location code, if they're being reported at a building, say, and their grade is 9, but that building is grade 6 through 8, will it error on grade 2?
Field 2 should not error.
Okay.
In that situation, but location code of residence should be where that student would attend.
According to their grade level.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right, just a little clarification here though for field 2. If you're reporting a grade outside of the Edna grade configuration, if special ed indicator is a Y, there is a 3-grade grace. So if this location is grades K through 3, and you're reporting the student in 6th grade in this school, as long as I believe it's field 38 equals Y, then the DQE rule ignores that check.
Thank you very much. That's good to know.
Sure.
Okay, let's go to IU 3 for the next 2 questions.
Janet here from Fox Chapel asking her question.
I thought that under the mobility codes on the presentation that it said never educated at the LEA, but for code C. My question is though, what if they start out the year in a school and then they transfer to a placement, which would be a code C? Do we change it to code C?
No, the mobility codes are only if the student has not been educated with you at any point during the entire school year. So if you educated them for 3 months, then put them in placement for the rest of the year, you did educate them at your LEA in that year, so you would not use mobility code C. Same with the transfer or dropout. If it's a partial year and then they drop out, you would just report them as a dropout. If it's a partial year and they transfer, you just report the transfer. You don't use the mobility code in that case.
Okay, and then so the mobility code, so we would start off with anybody in placement this year as a mobility code C. But if that changes, then we would change the C to blank or whatever.
Correct. We'll look at that at the end of the year when the reports are generated.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now we have Paula from Allegheny Valley going to ask for further clarification on the C.
Okay, it's not necessarily a transfer for the mobility code, but if a student was at a placement, let's say all of last year, and they're going to continue with that placement this year, do I put in a code C?
Yep, put in C, leave it there. If the student sometime during the year comes back to you, take the C out. If they don't, leave it there for the duration. And if they stay in that placement next year, leave it there next year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's go to IU 12 for the next question.
Hi. As you can see the question there, I guess my question is, are the DQE rules, I know before, like if I would put yes or no or free or reduced for one, then you would get an error if it wasn't like yes or no for the free or reduced, you had to have a yes for the economic advantage code. But if, I think I talked to you about this before, Tony, but I wasn't sure. It was probably 2 years ago. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you out there like that. But I'm just wondering if those DQE rules aren't connected anymore. Because I know before, whenever I would try to do that, like we would have a kid getting like reduced lunch, but they're not economically disadvantaged. So if I put a no, then I would get an error because it was looking for a yes. Hopefully that makes sense.
Well, especially with.
So I think I was looking at DQE rules the other day, and I'm fairly certain that the only one currently in place is that to be a participant, you have to be eligible. So field 131, you can't have F or R in field 33 if field 131 is not F or R. I don't think that it looks at field 88.
Right, because it's entirely possible to be food program eligible if you're you're in a CEP school. You're reported as food program eligible regardless of your economic disadvantage status. So those two aren't connected.
Right.
Perfect. I think you just answered my question. I probably had the fields backwards, but you guys knew what I meant. So thank you.
Okay, let's go back to IU3 for the next question.
Question for regarding the October submission from Keystone Oaks here at IU3.
Yes, that October 1st through 11th deadline for collection 1 is essentially 7.5 days, which is much reduced from what we had before. That's really almost unrealistic. That's terrible. I mean, is there nothing that can be done to extend that? Plus, you know, we don't even, the next person here from does the same thing. Our student information system won't even update our state information on our SISs until after the manual is released, which means we're not going to even get those changes till for a couple of weeks yet. So this is, I mean, you keep reducing that date, that submission date.
So the first collection, the first window of collection is the 1st through the 11th of October. And then it closes. We have to close because there is an internal snapshot, I believe, on the 12th. I don't remember.
I think you're right,
but that's why it's typically more like 2 weeks. So it is only a 3-day reduction. And then we always have the review window for the next 2 weeks. And then we open again for another 2 weeks. So you have until November 16th to upload your October student and staff.
And staff, yep.
And staff.
And the grad cohort, remember, is done on the C6 student collection for 17-18 this year. It's a lagging indicator. I actually don't close it at all except when it has to close for the snapshot, which has nothing to do with grad cohort. So even though technically it's closed from October 11th to the November 1st, for the most part, it's open every day. And it's been open, so you could already have all your grads in. The only students that shouldn't be in at this point are the ones currently still actively pursuing the completion of their degree from last year, or the ones you don't yet know transferred. But since the school year closed, any that you don't yet know transferred really should be reported in 18-19, and you don't need to worry about that at this point.
And to cover the why from the next question, because I kind of think they were together. So there's multiple reporting dates happening at the same time. We're trying to reduce some of the burden by not having the data being updated by all of the LEAs multiple times a week or multiple times a month. There's a couple times where that does happen, but we did pull several dates together in October. That's how we landed on October 11th. And then as far as committing to releasing the manual and calendar by Friday, that is something I cannot do at this point in time. All I can tell you is we are in the final stages of routing. Right now we have one department that has to sign off, and then it has to go to the secretary for sign off. And we will get it posted as soon as we absolutely can, but I cannot commit to Friday.
Email's ready.
So does that answer IU24's question then?
This is already a chaotic time of year, and we are not just PIMS administrators. We're registrars, we're child accounting, some of us building secretaries. We wear multiple hats. So you've just taken what is already a crazy time and now condensed it down. I don't think you're necessarily recognizing that.
I hear you. I will go back. Again, this isn't final yet, so I'll go back and see if anything can be done, at least bring up that conversation. But again, I can't guarantee a change, and I can't guarantee when they'll be posted.
Okay, let's go ahead then to IU25.
I wanted to know if buildings can be CEP and still have half-day kindergarten students not receiving and labeled CEP.
I think how you operate in a CEP building is going to be a question more for the food and nutrition people. But as far as whether you would report those half-day students as
food program eligible,
as eligible,
I would still report them as food program eligible, because then when we're looking at the data, we're not questioning why.
I think, and this is one of those things that's,
right.
We used to turn the mic off for this and then we'd try to figure out what we wanted to say. But we think it's good for you guys to hear this part of the conversation as well. I think the requirement that everybody in a CEP school is reported as food program eligible is due to an EdFax reporting requirement. And I think to really give you an answer that we're very comfortable with, we'd have to look at the EdFax reporting rules and see what they say about students who are in a CEP school, but wouldn't necessarily be there at lunchtime. So I think our answer is we don't know, but we'll find out.
Oh yeah, you can send that question to ra-ddq data collection at pa.gov.
Okay, great. Looks like the next question is from IU15. Go ahead, Steve.
For the mobility code C, there are resident students, special ed, outside placements. Can we wait till the December submission to submit them? I mean, it's just on the student template.
For most of it, I would agree with you, but PVAS coordinator disagrees because there is a PVAS submission due.
Some people are submitting PVAS earlier. So if you're not one of those, you could probably submit that information later. But if you are, it will affect your PVAS scores.
Right. So the answer is you have to have the student in. If you don't put the mobility code C in there, then that student will still show on the PVAS information. Am I correct in that? Because you were kind of off mic there. Okay.
But again, I would never report these kids other than for special ed submission. So
right. So it probably wouldn't affect you.
Right. In that case, you wouldn't be affected. Right.
Okay, let's go back to IU3 for the next question.
Right, this is with regards to the PIMS sandbox, and is the practice still going to be in place that it is always going to be open 2 weeks prior to all collections and for all collections?
The statement as it's written is definitely in all caps. Definitely is a strong word. Understand that just like you at your particular organization, there's always things out of your control with system issues. PDE is part of the state. We have state IT people. It is always our goal and our strongest effort at the Office of Data Quality, who opens the sandbox, to open the sandbox at least 2 weeks ahead of time for any collection. But there is always the possibility of extenuating circumstances. And when that happens, we run around yelling and doing our best to make sure it gains the highest attention level possible. Ms. Supervisor, do you want to?
No, I was going to say, as of now, we are definitely on track to do that.
And right now, we're on track. Nothing that we are aware of that would delay it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's go to IU2 for the next question.
Our question is, the October 1 correction window closes on 11/16 at noon, which means that we could be submitting data until noon. How is the refresh going to take place at noon so that we have an ACS?
As long as your data is in and processed before noon, the refresh should pick it up. And I say should because sometimes refreshes fail. The refresh should pick it up, and that should be reflected in the ACS that you run after the refresh. If for some reason that doesn't happen, of course, we're able to give you some leeway on that submission.
And keep in mind too, if you submit your data and you do have a data exception request and you have to put in a data exception request, and just for argument's sake, say you're fighting the timeline, it's 11:55. If Ashley's there, if I'm there, there's a couple other folks that can do the data exception request. We try to stay on top of them and approve or deny them. That's another factor as well. So our suggestion, and I get it, some of the timelines are a little bit shorter. Get it in early, or try to get it in before the deadline.
Okay, so we'll move to the staff questions here. So let's go to IU25 here for this question.
Yeah, when we have a lot of female staff members that get married, not always in the summer, and our policy is we change their email. So how do we handle this if we have to enter an email address for them? It's usually we change the district email, and that's what we put in for PFAS. Should I just tell them it can't be changed except during the summer, or can they, what happens with, can they change their email address on PFAS?
Email address at any time, we should change it.
Okay, according to the PVAS coordinator, it's suddenly gotten camera shy. You could change email address at any time and should change it to match.
And also, don't forget, if that staff member is going to go by their new last name, you're also going to have to make that staff member is going to have to make the proper changes in TIMS. TIMS. TIMS, not this Tim.
Timmy.
Okay, but is that something that we put in as a change, or does the staff member just do it directly on TIMS and the PFAS? I mean, does the PIMS administrator have to do something, or do we just direct the staff member to make the changes?
After the staff member makes the appropriate changes in TIMS, then they will want to let the PIMS administrator know that, hey, my data is different in TIMS now, because there is a DQE check that checks the staff member's name. So if you're uploading, say the staff member's name was Smith and now it's Jones, and they changed it to Jones in TIMS, and you upload into PIMS with Smith, you're going to get an error. So there's got to be some communication there. And then the email address, it's an updatable field. So if you upload it with a blank, it's going to wipe out the existing email address that's in there. So you can upload the email address change anytime.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, great. I believe that is the last question we have for this Q&A session. So we want to thank PDE for coming out here and giving all these presentations. We really do appreciate all their time they put to putting all these presentations together, coming out, answering all the questions. IU15 will stop sharing the screen now, and then we will close out with one more activity here.
All right, we're going to switch screens here. Looks like we gave away the code ahead of time, so people are already in.
No, we didn't.
So I'm going to share this, and this is a tool that you can use yourselves. We kind of like it as a way of collecting information. So if you have a smartphone and you can see the code at the top, you can start answering this question. So basically you go to the site menti.com, type in the code 671024 and you can participate. And the first question is, how long have you been attending DQN meetings? If you notice in the bottom right-hand corner, we can see that people are still answering. So especially on this first question, we'll give people a little bit of extra time to find the website. Welcome to all of our new users. That might be the wrong phraseology, the new members. All right, I'll advance. So for this question, you can actually type in whatever you want to type in. What is the main reason that you attend a DQN meeting? You can just type in text. That's close to what we had before. We'll share this Wordle out with your points of contact to send out to everybody. Oh, we're still getting more. Thanks for trying out our new data collection tool.
It's awesome.
All right, moving on to the next question. This one would work the same way. What topic would you like to see presented at a future Data Quality Network meeting? Instead of building a Wordle, this time we'll just show you the topics that people are typing in. All right, I'm going to move on. All right, this is a stand-up activity. Sorry. Introduce yourself to somebody new in your room and find out something about them that you're willing or they're willing to have you type into Menti. So I'll mute at this end so that we're allowed to talk. Take about 2 or 3 minutes, find out something about somebody near you that they're willing to let you type into Menti.
That was their main question.
All right, we'll wrap up in just about 30 seconds. All right, here we go. What's the biggest benefit you get out of these new changes? All right, we'll move on to the next one. So for those of you that shared, thank you very much for sticking it out. We will take this data. PDE knew we were collecting it, so we'll share some of this feedback with them. It also informs our presentations each month. Cindy, are you going to send out the link, or do you want to put it up on the screen now?
Sorry, I can put it up on the screen. If you give me just a second, I'll do some share screening and we'll see what we can do. Okay, so. All right, so we have created a PIMS contact list. It's a little sub-site. There'll be a link on the Data Quality Network website that you can use to get here easily. But if you write this down, tinyurl.com/PIMS, all capital letters, PIMS -LEA dash, oh, that's all capital letters also, dash contacts, capital C, lowercase on text. So I'm sure everybody got that, but just in case, let me put it up on the whiteboard.
Sorry.
All right, hopefully you can see that. I'm not sure if I can make it bigger or not because I'm not a whiz at the whiteboard. No, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, look, I can make it duplicate itself. Welcome to my world. All right, so that's the address, but let me go back over to the page and show you a little bit about it. Just hit my desktop up. All right, so on the PIMS contact page, this is the front page of it, and it gives you a little information. There's a location where you can submit your contact information. If you go there, it's going to bring up a form. It's going to ask you for a variety of information. Wants to know what IU you're in, what your AUN number is, what your LEA's actual name is, who you are, what's your email address. It'll ask for your phone number. It will ask if we can share your phone number or would you prefer just your email, things like that. When you get to the end, it's going to ask you to be sure that you review what you've submitted or you're getting ready to submit. And please don't click next if you're not willing to actually share the information. One of the things you'll see as you get into it is you'll have an opportunity to specify what PIMS collections you work with. So if you're in a district with multiple PIMS people, they can, you can put multiple people into the list and folks could find, oh, who's the child accounting person at that school district. Same thing as you go down, we're collecting information on what SIS do you use, as well as what special ed data management system. So all of those go in, and then we can go over to the Find a Contact page. And on the Find a Contact page, we have a little bit of a, I call it the gatekeeper. It's just to help protect people's data, protect their privacy. You can enter your email address or you can enter a fictitious email address, but I'd really like it if you used your real one. And when you submit that, it will open up an actual link to the data, and you can click on that, and then you can see that we've already got about 50 some people who have put their data in, possibly more. You can do things like filter it or search from it. It does sort by AUN number, so they're kind of grouped together in that. The first column is the intermediate unit number, and I did try to put the names in there, but it wouldn't sort properly with the name and the number together, so I took them back out. I think you'll pretty much find it interesting and useful. I will tell you this, when you go to submit your data, it's going to ask you to verify that you are permitted to share your contact information, and if you say no, it will not show up here. So if you get there and you realize you can't and you want to submit it, you'll have to redo the form, and once you have the permission and say that yes, it can be shared. We are going to do this on an annual basis. That's our plan right now. We felt that it was worthwhile to make sure that the contact list was as current as possible without having any one person have to do a whole lot of emailing to remind people to update. So annually at the beginning of August, we're expecting to wipe out the prior year's data and then give you the same opportunity to go in August and put in either the same information or your new information. So hopefully people will find that useful. I said there's been about 50 so far, and I know that it's been accessed about 140 times already from that group of 50 people. So it's definitely being used a little bit already. So we've got probably less than 10% in there so far. It's open to all LEAs, not just to districts or career and technology centers. So everybody is welcome to put their information in there. I'd be more than happy to answer questions if people have them. Might be easiest if people were to choose to email me. I would accept emails. Let me just, whoops. And we will, most of us, I'm sure all of us will probably send that out to you guys as your DQN POCs. We will send it out to our local lists to encourage people to sign up. But if you do have any specific questions, you can, oops, that's not the text tool. You can, that's still not the text tool. Let's try one more time. You can email me. And hopefully you'll find it, as I said, useful. Ta-da, that's it.
Thanks a lot, Cindy. So any questions, go to Cindy, you can ask your POC. We'd love to have you sign up. And for those of you that asked for this during the question, next month we will talk about PVAS, and we will also do a technical overview of the Future Ready PA Index website. So thank you for sticking around to the very end, and we look forward to seeing you next month.